All right, we have Carol Roth with us. Carol Roth is a good friend of the program and also the author of You Will Own Nothing. Former investment banker, now cares about Main Street. Carol, how are you?
Doing well, Glenn. You seem a little feisty today, and I always enjoy feisty, Glenn.
Yeah,
so this should be good.
Well, I tell you, the Cookie Monster really pissed me off today because there's no way that that's a coincidence. That's coordinated propaganda from the White House.
Well, I feel like Cookie Monster was the one who got it right. Cookie Monster's not the one who blamed the corporations. I believe it was Joe Biden, right? He just said that his cookies were getting smaller because of shrinkflation.
Right.
And I think that makes him a better economist than anyone in the Biden administration or in the New York Times, for that matter. But the reality is that this is a Biden talking point. So they picked up on this and they said, no, Cookie Monster, shrinkflation is happening because of the greedy corporations.
So today they're launching something, and Carol, I want to get your read on this. This seems a little terrifying. Joe Biden today is launching a new task force to take on unfair and illegal corporate pricing, which Biden sees as a major reason why consumers are not yet feeling the impact of a cooling inflation rate. The task force will jointly be led by the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice, two agencies at the forefront of the Biden administration's aggressive regulatory agenda over the past 3 years. Wow. What are these illegal? What did they say? Illegal pricing.
Illegal and unfair pricing.
Yeah. Okay.
Unfair is anything that Biden says doesn't go along with his narrative, and he's really talking out of both sides of his mouth, or perhaps mumbling out of both sides of his mouth. Because on one hand, he's touting how much the economy is growing, that things are going well, that wages are increasing. So if that was the case, corporations should be doing better, and there is no corporation that is making any sort of outsized profits. Things like shrinkflation and what's happening are downstream issues from the inflation that the Biden administration caused and certainly the Fed caused. So to now say we're going to have a task force that is going to look up unfair and illegal pricing practices, illegal is one thing, and there's a certain definition, at least today, who knows what that could be expanded to. But unfair is obviously anything that they don't happen to like or agree with or is against their policy. And one of the things that we know in economics, just across the board, is that price controls don't work. That's something that creates rationing, creates goods shortages,
and a black market.
Even Paul Krugman, who gets every single thing wrong, the one thing he has ever gotten right is he is against rent control, which is one of many forms of price controls. So even he kind of gets the fact that price controls don't work. Everyone pretty much across the board agrees with that. But now they want to come in as the government and step in and say, oh, you're earning too much of a profit. We don't like what you're doing. You need to lower your prices, even though we're imposing this different world upon you. And that is a recipe for disaster, and is obviously completely the opposite of free market capitalism.
Right. It is a fascistic move. When the government tells companies what to do, it's a move that fascists make. I'm concerned about this because, with all the public-private partnerships, the ones that are going to get into trouble are not the ones that are doing the bidding of the American government now. Let me give you an example. New York State Attorney Letitia James has now filed suit against JBS USA Food Company. This is the world's largest beef producer, accusing it of fraudulent and illegal business activities and disgorgement of all profits and ill-gotten gains. She's using the state's apparatus to go after beef producers, but not for any other reason other than they say they are shooting for zero emissions by 2040. And she says that's fraud.
Yes. She's accusing them of what's quote unquote greenwashing. So the state has put these ridiculous parameters around different companies. The companies, as we knew or had known, leaned into those and wanted to sound like they were complying. And so they said, oh, we're going to do all of these things to help the environment. So now she's saying, no, it's fraudulent. You haven't done the things that we said, or at least in the way that we said. And, with JBS, it's a little bit tough, obviously, because they're this huge corporate conglomerate. And in some cases, they may have, created some issues with the independent farmers.
Oh, yeah.
But either way, you're not rooting for the state here to come in. And this disgorgement of profits sounds, by the way, Glenn, a lot like what happened
Donald
to Trump. So this is anything that you have made, we're going to confiscate.
First, New York came for the National Rifle Association. I didn't say anything because I didn't own a rifle. I wasn't a hunter and I disagree with guns. Then they came for Donald Trump, but I didn't vote for him, so it didn't matter. Now they're coming for beef. And, you could go after JBS for unfair business practices, in my opinion.
Sure.
Because I'm a rancher and I see these. I believe there's absolute collusion with the three companies that are producing all of the beef in the country. They're getting rich. The farmers are getting poorer. The ranchers are getting poorer. So I think you could go after that, but it would have to be legitimate. You'd have to have the actual. I don't have the facts. You could go after them for that and break that monopoly up, which I think is fair. But she's not. She's talking about the rainforest. What the hell does the rainforest have to do with New York?
Well, and not only that, so think about this is very war on small business like, right? Because these bigger companies will have the capital base and the power to withstand, at least the first time around, some of these, tests from the state. But if you are an independent farmer or you are a small business in some other arena, and they come after you, that's it. You are wiped off the map, which just further consolidates, does exactly the opposite of the thing that you just talked about. It doesn't create this, more fair playing field. It creates these tighter monopolies and duopolies. So this is almost like a warning sign to say, hey, maybe you want to get out of this business because, we're coming after you. And that seems like the plan. They want to capture and control more and more of our resources and bring it more along with the state. And they're finding all of these, frankly, unconstitutional ways and banana republic-y sort of ways to do it.
I got to tell you,
we have to stand up.
You got to get out of New York because they're just going the wrong way. And Carol, I'd love your and Stu. I think you know a little bit more about this too. This is the future. Litigation is the way the left is moving. They are going to overwhelm the system with lawsuits on anything they disagree. They're just going to take us. Look what they're doing to Donald Trump. That's going to happen everywhere.
Yeah, lawfare is definitely the strategy, right? They keep coming out and they push these things down the throats of everybody. And then what's the response? You like the good outcome is you spend years and years and years litigating and spend tons and tons and tons of money defending yourself. You're not furthering the economy. You're not furthering your business. You're not helping anybody. You're not making products that benefit anyone. You're just in constant defense mode. And how do you advance yourself that way?
And you have to have the capital base to be able to do that. I mean, this is not something that is, for the faint of heart or, if you don't have enough dollars in the bank. This is a very expensive endeavor to be able to fight this. And so you come out the other end and it's not guaranteed that you're going to get restitution for your legal fees or anything else for that matter. It's like, oh, sorry, I guess we didn't win this particular one. Or you end up in, sort of a corrupt area and they do end up winning on something that's baseless, as we saw happen in New York. And so it is very frightening for anybody who has a business.
So let me ask you, Hochul came out last time under Donald Trump and said, don't worry, you're for business. This is Donald Trump specific. No. This is exactly, they're targeting a business they don't like, and they're trying to take it down with everything the state has in its power. When does New York cross the Rubicon and businesses just say, I am out of here? When does New York collapse economically?
It's a really good question. I mean, certainly as a test run, I do think that people, particularly New York has a lot of liberal people who believe that it will not happen to them. We did see mass movement during COVID, people who said, I've had enough with these policies. Certainly the cost, the crime, all of those other issues have seen a mass exodus out of the state to places like Florida. But for the people who remain and say, that no, this is my home, this is the heartbeat of my soul or whatever it is, they just aren't going to believe that it is going to happen to them until it happens to one of them. And then, of course, they make another set of excuses saying, well, this was different. And I just think that's one of the big issues with this country. We have a lot of people who are in denial and decoupled with reality and don't understand and don't want to, frankly, understand,
right,
the reality of what is happening here, Glenn.
So let me go back to this tribunal that the president is starting today with the Department of Justice and the FTC. This again, I hate to be such a cynic, but I have no reason not to be in this case. They're going to target the companies that are not falling in line with them. And how are we going to fight this one? What should these companies do? And what should the average person do to prepare? Because this is really going to go right to the heart of capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one piece of good news is that the courts are also working in some cases in the other way. And there are groups like Pacific Legal Foundation and others who are these nonprofits that will stand up for businesses and individual rights. We just saw a at least interim win, that Corporate Transparency Act that we had talked about, the financial crimes network that was mass targeting small businesses. Over the weekend, the Alabama courts had ruled, or came out over the weekend, that they had ruled that it was unconstitutional. Now, certainly we imagine that the Treasury is going to fight that, but if that holds, that shows that there's a win. So there will be, I think, these marquee opportunities to push back. But unfortunately, it's just exhausting because it's like, you go and you kill the ants and you think that you've got everything done, and then the rain comes and then you've got a whole new, group of them coming back out. Yeah. So I think that we have to stay vigilant and we have to use our voices, because the places where people have spoken up and have said this is an issue across the board, whether it's to politicians, whether it's to Wall Street, wherever it is, those are the places where they've backed off. And certainly they've gone somewhere else. But, things like messing with our food supply, that is an absolute no, and something that everybody should be using their voices.
So BlackRock says ESG advocacy is a risk factor for its bottom line. I told you, don't believe them. They'll repackage. Carol, I just want to hit this briefly because I've got other things in the economy I want to talk to you about. BlackRock has now said, we're not doing ESG, too many laws, but we're doing transition investing. What's transition investing?
They're transitioning, Glenn. They want to transition, and they're transitioning away from ESG, and they're doing it in infrastructure. And when they say infrastructure, they mean things like transportation, like water, like sewage, and like. So instead of using their clients' money to bully companies to make the changes they want, they're like, we'll just use our clients' money to invest directly into things that are sort of linchpins in making a change in their sort of energy cultism, so to speak. So one of the things they did is they bought a private equity firm that actually specialized in this. So not even just public money, but also private money. This company has about $100 billion in assets under management, which is not to say it's a small amount of money. It's a huge amount of money. But in terms of BlackRock, it's about 1% of their assets under management, because remember, they've got about $10 trillion in assets under management. but it gives them this vehicle to make these direct investments. And the firm that they bought owned things like pieces of like big airports around the world and, water and sewage treatment and the like. And so BlackRock is going to be offering more of these direct investment opportunities, as well as having funds that do that in the public sector. But the reason they're doing it, this is not just about control. This is about following the money, Glenn. And that has been sort of one of the tent poles of ESG. This is a quote from Larry Fink. Policymakers are only just beginning to implement once-in-a-generation financial incentives for new infrastructure technologies and projects. So this is not only about control, but this is another cash grab. They are going to say, well, if we have our friends that we can influence in the government and we can get them to give more incentives to the projects that we're investing in, then we are going to make more money and we can achieve our goals. What a great win. And another way to just completely consolidate money, take taxpayer money, and find ways to enrich themselves while destroying our lives.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
By the way, one quick thing. We've got only about 90 seconds. We are adding $1 trillion worth of debt now every 3 to 4 months.
Correct. Every 100 days, $1 trillion. I said that, you have that one family member in every family who is the irresponsible one, the one who spends all their money and then comes begging to you and saying that they're going to be different this time.
Right.
The government is that drunk uncle. That is your family member. And unfortunately, there's no stopping, but everybody knows the problem. Like, everybody has said this is a problem now, and nobody has the fortitude to do anything about it. I mean, we were talking from rating agencies, the Treasury, the Fed, the IMF, major players from Jamie Dimon to Nassim Taleb. Like, every single person has come out now and said this is a massive issue, and nobody's doing anything about it.
And when you do this and you add $1 trillion every 100 days to the debt, of course inflation is going to go up. And that's why you need price controls. And price controls lead to all kinds of bad things. Don't believe what the mainstream media is telling you. This is simple mathematics, period. Carol, thank you so much. We'll talk again. God bless.
Good. Thanks, Glenn.
Carol Roth, the author of the book, You Will Own Nothing.